Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. So many people. My name is Geoffrey R. I'm the CTO of Med-El, which is in Austria. I think it's located over the hills, over the Alps, over that way. Originally, I come from California. Anyway, the most important thing that you should know about me is that I am deaf. Now, what if I told you that deaf people had a huge impact, not only on the world of hearing, but also on the world of music? And in fact, what if I told you that without deaf people and deaf inventors and deaf innovators, rock and roll may not have happened? And it's a coincidence. But Ludwig van Beethoven, we know he was extremely deaf. Couldn't hear really anything later in his life. And we know this because he had a metal rod implanted into his piano. And he put it into his teeth. Now, and that he was able to hear through bone conduction. And as a deaf person, I can tell you, probably heard pretty well. And he said that when as his hearing got worse and worse later in life, he was able to concentrate more and focus more. And his output of his symphonies went up as he got older. So was it a coincidence or was it desperation, or just that he was able to be less distracted? Another great innovator and person who was very deaf, and an inventor, there are many great inventors. My favorite inventor, by the way, is from Italy, Da Vinci. The second great favorite one was Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison was very deaf for almost all of his life. And his very first invention that he was trying to work on. Now, you're all thinking, oh, Thomas Edison, I know that guy. He invented the light bulb. No, he didn't invent the light bulb. He invented the indoor low voltage DC light bulb. So he made an improvement, because prior to that, light bulbs were so bright that they could only be used outside. Now, Thomas Edison did invent the first recording and playback of sound with his device, and he was able to play back the sound, and he thought his first recording devices should be used by bosses, and they would go in and shout into the device at night, and before they would return home, and they would say, okay, they would issue their secretaries and the typists the instructions for them to type the next day. And he thought it was a business tool. And if you used his phonograph to record and play back music, he was really angry about this. He thought that was a terrible parlor trick. So in the way he was working on his electronic hearing aid, he accidentally founded the recording industry as we know it today. He also invented microphones, amplifiers. He invented the speakers that we use, all the major components of audio, which are still used in hearing aids today. And I also use them in my devices, which I'll talk about later. Now, my favorite deaf inventor is Les Paul. Now, a lot of you are thinking, who is Les Paul? Well, Les Paul was deaf. He wore giant hearing aids. His hearing aids were so big that people could hear them blasting and feeding back across the room. Les had severe hearing loss. I also had severe hearing loss, so I know it was true because my hearing aids, back when I tried to use them, were blasting across the room and all my friends could hear them, so we know this is true. Les was married to a woman named Mary Ford. She played the guitar, and she was a wonderful singer. And Les wanted to make her guitar louder so he could hear it. So he invented this thing, I don't know if you've heard of it, called the solid body electronic amplified guitar. And since he had the first electric guitar, he also invented the multi-tracking and multi-playback and dubbing and the first effects for the electric guitar. And so I got to tell you, now every rock and roll musician today has played a Les Paul, and most of them own a Les Paul. And I think like, a lot of them, like Slash only, will play a Les Paul Classic Custom. And now, did Elvis Presley use a Les Paul custom guitar? No, but Buddy Holly did, so it was close. So I think, if you look at it, deaf people, we had a lot to do with the founding of rock and roll. Maybe it wouldn't happen without us. Now, another, well, I guess not great inventor, but when I was in 1967, I made an incredible invention, and it was called the Hattasuit. You haven't heard of the Hattasuit? Anybody? Anybody? No. The Hattasuit was a device that you could wear in the swimming time as a bathing suit, and then after you were done swimming, you could put it on your head and use it as a hat. It never caught on, believe it or not. I don't know why. Now, this is an interesting picture because this picture was taken of me in 1967. What happened in 1967 was what was really bad in 1968. This picture is probably about the last time I could hear normal. Then, in the winter of 1968, I got mumps, and all of a sudden I lost my hearing. Almost all of it. Does anybody know what it's like when you lose all your hearing? Any ideas? It's really quiet. And, and so I started inventing at a really early age, and the Hattasuit never caught on, but I didn't give up. And later on, I went on to invent the bone bridge and the sound bridge. The sound bridge is the implant that I have in my left ear, and as I said, it's used as the audio processor, which has a microphone, which again, that guy, Thomas Edison, invented. Has a battery. Thomas Edison also worked on batteries, has amplifiers on it. Thomas Edison also worked on those. And then I have an implant that is held in with a magnet. Now, I made it so that you can hide the device from people, but the kids these days wear them on the outside, all my deaf kids, and they show them off, which is really, I think, kind of cool, and I should stop hiding my devices. My Vibrant Soundbridge uses the world's smallest high-fidelity transducer. The doctor puts it in about an hour procedure, and then instead of using sound to broadcast it louder, it just moves the ossicles a little bit more. Sorry, those are the little bones of the ear, so it just increases the vibrational energy. I have another device, the bone bridge, which uses bone conduction. Remember that guy, that composer, Beethoven? He could have used this device because it just would have encouraged the vibrations to vibrate more in his skull. So when you want to, if you're an inventor in hearing, you find out the coincidence is, I wanted to make the perfect invention. I wanted to make the perfect medical device or the perfect thing that would cure hearing loss, and it worked for everybody. And that's actually not really what you want to do. What you want to do, you want to invent a family of devices that can be used for treating all different types of hearing loss. And I found out you really want to create a field, because if you make a really cool invention that will help deaf people and people with medical conditions, then you will get this thing called competition, and they come along and they will make everything better. And in my case, the hearing impaired people will benefit even more. I just got back from a conference where we had the field of implantable middle ear implants, which I helped found, and also the field of transcutaneous bone conduction implants. And what's really cool is that now we have several more options for all the kids. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about is that where did my inventions come from? Well, they came from my garage in Silicon Valley. And it still pretty much looks like that today, believe it or not. It might be moved into a museum. Now, and I worked in my garage. Why did I work in my garage? Because Thomas Edison said, you need a big pile of junk. And me and my dad had a big pile of junk in the garage lab. There was another, and in California, the weather's so good, not that many people park their cars in the garage. And so I would go out and I would build. We always talk about inventors. We always hear about the things that worked, that became successful. I built hundreds of floating mass transducers and hundreds of my implantable devices that didn't work. Some of them had really cool names too, but you never hear about the attempts that didn't work. And even Edison, remember that guy in the light bulb? He tried thousands of filaments before he finally found the one that worked. So he never surrendered and he never gave up. And now this garage is in Silicon Valley. Now, why do so many inventions come out of Silicon Valley? And well, the weather's good. But there were a couple of guys that lived 2 blocks away from my home in California. They had a garage too, and they were both named Steve. And they started this fruit company in their garage, and I rode by it every day on my way to high school. And I actually went to the same high school electronics class as I did. And they founded this company named Apple. And I hope it worked out for them. But there was another company in Italy that actually started before them that had a really cool thing. Now, again, to invent, you need a big pile of junk. And that was what that guy Edison said, and I absolutely agree with that. I also believe you must never surrender, never give up, and always keep trying. So, is it a coincidence that deaf people have had such an impact on the field? Or is it desperation in the fact that we just had to work really hard? Edison never got his device done. Now, I told everyone, you want to make a good invention, you want to build the field. What's the next step? Well, the next step is we want to carry our inventions and the spirit of inventing onto the next generation. And that's what we're doing with my Ideas for Ears contest, which I thought would be, I had this little box in front of my house, and I said, okay, kids with a good invention, put it in here. And then at the end of the year, I was going to take them out to pizza or something. This contest has gone global. We have, I think last year we had over 1,000 entries from over 60 countries. And what's really cool about it is that when one of my deaf inventor kids comes up with a cool invention for how to improve our implants or our devices, everybody hears about it because it gets in the media and it gets really good attention. But this is so cool because the other deaf kids and the other deaf educators find out about it. And, you know, it's really a good motivating, if you're a deaf kid and you're suffering and people are making fun of you because your hearing aids sound bad and are really terrible. And by the way, the big problem with hearing aids is not the microphones or the amplifiers that guy invented or the batteries. Hearing aids during COVID, was anyone remember COVID? Anybody? Nobody really remembers? Oh, there's one. All right, thanks. No, well, somebody remembers COVID. Now, during COVID, you all learned about this thing called occlusion. What's occlusion? And I was sitting there going, wow, I've invented these cool hearing implants that I can use to hear clearly, and all of a sudden, everybody sounds like a hearing aid wearing a mask. Hearing aids suffer from occlusion, which means that if the sound is occluded and blocked, everybody sounds like a hearing aid. And you are probably also amazed that you really needed lip reading and face reading. And that's, well, deaf people were the masters of that. Deaf people also are, all my deaf kids and all my deaf kid entries, they're all so good looking. They're all the best looking. And they're also all the best dancers too, by the way, which is just something that's one of the side effects of being deaf. So is it a coincidence that we have all these great deaf inventor kids? I don't think so, because they are so creative. And now some of the deaf kids in my contests are actually starting to sing. Now, a coincidence is that David, who could not be here today, was one of my deaf kids for Ideas for Ears. He made an improvement on our cochlear implants. And he won an award from, for the president of Italy. And I am not going to say, not President Mozzarella, it's Mozzadello. Was that his name? I hope that's okay. And that was really cool. And that's giving something back. And all the other deaf kids and deaf educators, or almost all of them, in Italy heard about it. And it's really, really a great motivating thing. So, to finish up, is it a coincidence that so many deaf people, that I'm a good inventor, that we went through and invented all these things to try and make our own hearing better? Or is it desperation? I guess I leave it up to you. But I think what would really be cool, now that we have deaf kids who are actually doing music, there's this singer, he's the blind singer, the blind tenor, and he sings, and I guess he's pretty good. His name's Andrea Bocelli. And I think it would be really good. Oh, by the way, I've been taking 5 years of opera singing lessons, and I'm deaf. So I wonder, which is better, the blind tenor or the deaf tenor? Okay, probably, maybe he's as good as me, I don't know. But I would really love it to get one of our deaf kids on stage with him and do more singing acts. This is such a motivator to all the other deaf people, and it really goes a long way. And it's just a way of paying it forward, and I think it's really a cool thing. So if anybody knows anybody, please let me know. And I think I've hit all my bullet points that I wanted to make. Thank you very much to the TED team here on the ground and the staff and my staff and everybody. You know, you really have done a great job, and thank you so much to you guys.